And so in this cultural moment, we need a methodology. That I say to our folks in LA, I say we need a methodology of telling people about Jesus that isn't pushy, super awkward, preachy, disrespectful, judgy, arrogant, unloving, unkind, cheesy, shaming, super difficult, or as Mean Girl says, social suicide. And part of the problem is we actually haven't changed our methodology in light of the changing culture around us. I got some slides here that represent what evangelism, telling others, was like in the 50s. In the 50s, people had a foundation of the gospel in their life. They knew that Jesus existed. They would kind of be sympathetic to the church, sympathetic to the gospel, but they just weren't feeling it for themselves. Maybe they drifted away from church. Maybe they drifted away from their personal faith, got into all sorts of stuff, and then eventually they'd hear someone say to them, you need to come back to Jesus. And that convictional moment, either through a stadium or through someone interrupting them on the streets going, hey, do you know where you're going to go, where you die? And people will go, I need to think about that. And that convictional moment was so successful. And people would come to know Jesus. But then things moved on, and in the 70s and 80s, the cultural moment changed, and actually there were now some barriers to overcome. That we couldn't rely on pre-existing knowledge. We had to actually start to go, we live in a multicultural society now. People are starting to question, do all roads lead to God? Why is Jesus different to Muhammad? And actually church was boring, and it was like, actually this doesn't feel relevant. And so evangelism, telling others, took on the form of proof. Amazing books like More Than a Carpenter or The Case for Christ, where people wanted hard evidence, the modernistic view of, I need evidence now for this. And then the seeker-sensitive church kicked off because church was boring. People, the 80s was so entertaining. Church were falling behind, and we needed to boost the relevancy of church. But guess what? We're no longer in the 70s and 80s. And actually, where we find ourselves today in 2021 is in a drastically different scenario, cultural moment, where people have now even more barriers between them and Jesus Christ. So much so that when they're even considering a spiritual journey, they're not considering Jesus at all. They're going in a different direction. The last place I'm going to even consider is Jesus. I read an article recently where someone on a spiritual journey, the heading of the article was called, Christianity is not an option. In their spiritual journey, they'd already ruled out Christianity. So how do we tell people about Jesus when this is our reality? Well, I want to give you two things to do. Two things that I think everyone can do to see the gospel advance in this cultural moment. This is what I did in London. I was in a career in business and law for about 12 years. I was passionate about telling others about Jesus. I was called into the marketplace, not only to bring vocational renewal in the kingdom for the industry in which I was in, but also to see my friends and colleagues come to know Jesus. And this is what I did, and I want to offer these suggestions to you. The first thing is this: be a friend. Be a loving friend to those who don't know Jesus. Be a loving friend to those who don't know Jesus. Many of us struggle sometimes with friendships outside the church because there's so much amazing stuff in the church that we haven't carved out the time to build friendships with those outside. But follow the pattern of Jesus, who didn't shout from the heavens, but became incarnational and came close to people who didn't know him, and he lived amongst us, who befriended us. And then in that moment, what did he do? He loved us. Be a loving friend. Be Christ to your friends. I say to people, the first step in being a friend to a non-Christian, in sharing the gospel with someone, is be such a loving friend that you're the first Christian your friend likes. That you change the stereotype of what they thought a Jesus follower was. Now, to do that, you need to actually reveal yourself as a Christian. Because you don't want them to misapply this amazing lifestyle you have to something else in your life. You know, the worst thing possible is to go, man, you love the poor. You love your enemies. You're so forgiving. Oh, my word. It must be that hot yoga you do. You've got to actually reveal yourself as a Christian. And I found this when I was working, the most fun thing to do in the world. Because every Monday, people would say to me, Gary, how was your weekend? And I'd mess with them. Truthfully, but I'd mess with them. I'd say, you know what? It was an epic weekend. Saturday, I went hiking. Saturday night, went clubbing. Sunday morning, went to church. Church was unbelievable. And then we went to the pub and watched the footy and just had a great chill out Sunday night. And then to go, hang on. Which bit was unbelievable? I go to church. It was unbelievable. The worship was incredible. Bridgetown. It's unbelievable. The worship was killer. The sermon, John Mark, it's okay, but the worship was killer. And they go, what? They wouldn't know what to do with that. It was totally authentic. But then they knew, oh my word, you actually like this thing. And I'd live out my faith around them. I'd say, hey, you should come with me to serve the poor. You should come with me. Oh man, we're doing this mission trip. You should come with me. And all of a sudden, what you are doing is you're building credibility. You're building trust. You're actually showing them in a world where people go, this is what Christians are. They're judgy, they're preachy, they're offensive, they're politically odd, and to say it kindly, you know, this is who Christians are. And then all of a sudden you're messing with that stereotype, and suddenly you show them, actually, no, this is what Jesus is really like. It's the power of being salt and light. It's the power of being the aroma of Christ that Paul talks about. Do you live out your faith in loving friendships with those who don't know Jesus?